Well, it's my pleasure to share Nick's story with you. And I think Nick's story is just one of the best examples. And yet, there are so many of the great things that happen at Lutheran Social Services. So, Nick's story actually starts back in 1994. Nick was born in July of 94 to a woman who was at DC jail. And for obvious reasons, he couldn't stay with her and needed a home that he could call his until his mom was available to care for him. So, Child and Family Services contacted Lutheran Social Services and said, "Do you have any available foster families that could take a newborn baby for a temporary placement until his mom is paroled and can care for him?" And the case was assigned to a social worker by the name of Lisa. And Lisa said, "Well, actually, I have a brand new family, just got their license. They would love to get a new baby. Let me give them a call and make sure that they're available and can take Nick on." So she calls this family. It's a young couple in Montgomery County that didn't have any children of their own. This was going to be their first attempted parenthood. And so when they found out that they were going to get a brand new baby, they were thrilled and said, "Absolutely, we'd be happy to take care of Nick." So because Nick was a DC baby and this family lived in Montgomery County, there's a little bit of paperwork and some wonderful bureaucracy that you need to go through before the placement can occur. So in this interim period, Nick was placed at what's called a border baby home, which is a home where lots of children are sitting who are typically in sort of a temporary sort of situation. In this interim period, since the foster family knew they were going to be getting Nick, they would take turns. The husband and wife would take turns going down to visit Nick at night and give him his evening bottle and get him ready for bed and start to develop a relationship and attachment with him. And the foster mom remembers so vividly those evenings with Nick for a couple of reasons. First of all, he was teeny. He was just a little baby. He was probably a premature birth. He was only about 4 pounds when he was born. So by the time she met him, he was still a tiny guy. But he was also remarkable because he was such a quiet baby. And so he would sit in his little infant seat in this room with all of these children, and all of the other children would be sort of squawking and crying and expressing themselves and toddling around some. But Nick sort of sat in his seat and just sort of took it all in. He was kind of a quiet little baby. But where he really stood out, or which was so incredibly memorable for the foster mom, was when she would be giving him his bottle. And when she would hold him, he would look into her eyes and he wouldn't blink. He just maintained a stare that could not be severed. And it became very apparent to her that this little guy just yearned for relationship and attachment and wanted so much to be in a family that yearned for that sort of connection with somebody. So after a couple of weeks, the paperwork was processed, and Nick came home into his new foster family home. And it was a blast. They just loved having Nick as part of their family. He was an easy baby, never really caused any trouble, went with them everywhere. They're kind of an active couple, so whether they were camping or going to church or going out for a hike or cross-country skiing, he'd hop in their backpack and go off for a cross-country ski tour. And he just loved the activity and all the fun that came with being part of that family. He also loved their dog Max, so if he wasn't busy out doing something with his foster mom and dad, he was on the floor, typically pulling on the tail or snuggling up next to their dog Max. So it was really a great collection of characters in this house. Nick's placement with them was expected to be rather short. That he thought that his mom would become available quite quickly. So kind of expected that he wouldn't be there that long. That said, LSS still did an incredible job of helping that transition. When Nick came to live with them, they made sure that they had a crib and clothes. They didn't have any baby clothes, and LSS even helped find daycare since both of the foster parents were working. Made that whole transition as smooth and as easy as could be, so that they could really just connect on or focus on being a family. So after actually several months, Nick's mom still wasn't being paroled, and actually now it got to be past his first birthday and continued on. And we were coming up on Nick's second birthday, and that's sort of a critical juncture. That's a point where they say, all right, we need to come up with some sort of a long-term plan and really get some sort of permanency. So, two ways in which that can happen. Either you can terminate parental rights and make the child available for adoption, or you reunify the child with her family. Well, Nick's mom really wanted Nick. She wanted very much to retain relationship with him and to continue to be his mom, but she wasn't in a place where she could do that. But she was able to identify a family member who said, I'll take Nick temporarily until you are available. So, right after, about a week after Nick's second birthday, he left his foster family to go be with this family member. And LSS rallied again. They did just a great job of helping this new family now prepare for the welcoming of a 2-year-old boy, which is not always the smoothest thing. 2-year-old boys, as good as Nick was, they still have lots of energy and lots of personality, and they helped to make sure that that transition happened as smoothly as possible. But the other thing LSS did that was really important and so incredibly meaningful was they supported that family, that couple who lost Nick, because losing Nick after having him for his first 2 years and that being their only child in the house, it was really hard for them. And they needed a shoulder to cry on, and LSS provided that shoulder. So it was really amazing how well they managed that transition for both respective families. Several months passed, and Nick's mom continues to not be paroled. And the family member who had agreed to welcome Nick into her home recognized that this wasn't intended, nor really could it be, a long-term situation. So, as Nick was now getting closer to his third birthday, she called Lisa, the social worker at LSS, and said, I think we need to come up with another strategy or another plan for Nick that's permanent. And I don't think there's a biological family member that's available. So could we find maybe an adoptive home for Nick? And Lisa said, yeah, I think we could probably figure that out. So Lisa calls the foster family who's back in Montgomery County and says, Nick's coming back, but this time as an adoptive child, and wondering if you would be. And that's as far as she got in that conversation before the foster mom said, oh, please bring Nick home. And I'm so very happy to say that Nick's home is my home. And that little 4-pound baby is now my 200-pound 19-year-old son. And he is absolutely, I'm just the best child we ever could have imagined having in our home. He's full of energy. He's got just the happiest disposition. He's gone to high school and done great things in high school. He's now getting ready to go to college. He's a lifeguard. He's joined the National Guard. He's such a valuable part of our world, and I can't imagine him not being a part of our life. And LSS did that. LSS really saved him, and in a way saved us. So it's really a very personal thing for me when I talk about the great things that happen at LSS. And they didn't do it just once, because right after Nick came back to us, right around his third birthday, about 6 months later, LSS gave us another phone call. And this time they said, we've got 2-year-old Keenan and 1-year-old Nora who need a home, and would Nick like to be a big brother? So we said, of course. So we had a 1, 2, and a 3-year-old running around here with poor Max putting up with all these kids pulling on his tail. And now those 3 are 17, 18, and 19, and they are wonderful and amazing and completely what make our lives worth living, in spite of the fact that they're teenagers and make us crazy and eat a lot of food and and drive cars a little more recklessly than we wish they did. But when people talk about LSS and they say it does good things, there aren't words to talk about what LSS does. The lives they change and the miracles they perform, I've experienced firsthand, and I can speak absolutely with complete confidence that it's one of the best organizations out there doing the best work on this planet.